And when I say it's great to have you with us today, it is great to have you with us today. A lot of big news locally, and we're delighted you've chosen to spend part of your day with us. Maryland Congressman Chris Van Hollen is now poised to take the Senate seat held for more than a generation by a legendary pal. He trounced Donna Edwards in a statewide race that was bitter and hard-fought, but in the end, not that close. Two other big-name Democrats also scored major wins. Anthony Brown and Jamie Raskin now very likely to become freshman members of the U.S. House early next year. Our panel is in place. Washington Post senior regional correspondent Robert McCartney is here. Former Montgomery County Councilwoman Valerie Irvin joins us, and we welcome Center Maryland columnist Josh Kurtz. Great to have you all here. So much to talk about. I think we have to begin with what, for me, was the lead story coming out of the big Maryland primary vote. Chris Van Hollen, Bob, taking down, prevailing over Donna Edwards in a race that was intense, hard-fought, but he won going away. It was a bigger margin than I think many expected.
Yeah, much bigger margin. According to the polls, Edwards was ahead by a little bit as recently as a month ago, but he really gained a lot in the closing weeks. Everything went his way at the end, and ultimately her message of pushing inclusion as a key issue. You know, we need to send a message to the U.S. Senate by putting a black woman there. That didn't hold up compared to his message of I'm the more experienced and in leadership and effectiveness, and had a bit more money and the support of almost the entire Maryland Democratic establishment.
Valerie Irvin, Chris Van Hollen has been in elective office in Maryland for a quarter century. You worked with him when you were on the council, and he was in the state legislature now more than a decade in the U.S. House, where he's risen to prominent posts. What were the pieces that when cobbled together, gave him that big win?
Well, I think a month ago, as you said, I think the Van Hollen camp was very concerned about the numbers in the polls showing Donna Edwards a few points ahead. I think they spent the last 30 days moving a message about her as a woman not having the same kind of experience, which I think was not correct, but they really doubled down, especially with the party establishment, deeply rooted here in the state of Maryland, and the doubling down effect really worked at the end. And if you look at the numbers, it was in Montgomery County where he really trounced Donna. But when we look at other areas of the state, that didn't quite hold up.
Josh, picking up on Valerie's point, I was struck, as maybe you were, at the bold-faced names that gathered at the Van Hollen victory party. Now, it's not unusual once the contours of a race are clear and we know who the winners and losers are. It's natural for folks who might have been in their car somewhere at a Denny's, they drive to the venue. Maybe these bold-faced names were there all along, but I think as former Lieutenant Governor Kathleen Kennedy Townsend did the honorary, so-and-so's here, so-and-so's here, it was striking.
It was striking, but not altogether surprising, because, as others have said here, Van Hollen really was the establishment candidate, and he got the overwhelming majority of elected officials' endorsements, and and they were all there to sort of rally around.
Even in the year of the outsider, or so we keep being told.
Well, if you look at the primary results yesterday on the Democratic side, it really wasn't the year of the outsider. Really, the establishment candidates prevailed in most races, and I would include the mayoral primary up in Baltimore.
We'll talk more about the Van Hollen-Edwards race in a moment, and we will talk about that blockbuster speech that Donna Edwards gave in conceding defeat, but pivoting very quickly to another set of messages that I suspect we will hear much more from her in the days, weeks, months, and maybe years to come. But right now, let's talk about the race for the basically the open 8th District House seat in Maryland, with Jamie Raskin prevailing in a 9-candidate field. Democrat Jamie Raskin joins us now on the Newsline. State Senator Raskin, we can call you that till the end of the year. Thank you very much for your time. Good having you here. Congratulations on your win.
Bruce, hey, thank you very much, and for giving me, I won the primary, but I lost my voice in the process.
Talk about what it was like campaigning for this seat, and what, you were up against someone in Kathleen Matthews, who's been in people's living rooms for a quarter century. She brought some good elements to the race. We know that because she racked up a pretty high vote total. David Trone transformed this race with his spending, but it was you who came in first. As you piece together the elements of victory, what do you see?
Well, first of all, it was a thrill. I was on the campaign trail for 1 year and 1 week. You know, ours was the grassroots campaign, and we had 169 events in people's living rooms and backyards, and we had more than 11,000 campaign donors, and 80% of contributions came in $100 or less. You know, it was a scary race because there was a ton of money out there. You know, this is a tough business, and these candidates were good. You know, and Kathleen Matthews, she was a first-time candidate, but she was, you know, very strong and a very graceful candidate. And David Trone obviously shattered every record in U.S. history for spending in a.
Did he make you nervous? Did David make you nervous? All that lit, the radio ads, the TV spots, all of it?
Well, it did, because, you know, you never know what's going to happen. But we built our campaign methodically, really by going from block to block and street to street and district to district. And I was blessed to have the support of some incredible unions like the Teachers Union and the Firefighters Union and the grocery workers and the transit union and a bunch of elected officials. I mean, Brian Frost was amazing. You would not have known he was Attorney General of the state of Maryland because he came out every Saturday and Sunday and knocked on doors with most.
I think the folks here on the panel may have a question.
Jamie, Bob McCartney from The Post. I'd like to know what you, as a prominent member of the Maryland Democratic Party, and now to be even more prominent, assuming you win in November, what is your response to Donna Edwards' critique in her concession speech last night? I mean, she's saying very forcefully that the Maryland Democratic Party looks like it's not going to have any women in its congressional delegation going forward, that African Americans have never won, no African American has won statewide office on his or her own, when the blacks make up a very large, really the most loyal and reliable part of the Democratic base. What's your response to that critique?
Bob, thank you and good morning. Because I was at my own party, I didn't see anybody else's speech last night, so I'm afraid I can't comment on whatever Donna said last night. I will be certain to watch it today.
Well, you're familiar with the argument, though.
We have. It was a very long speech. We aired part of it last night, not as much as we had hoped to get to, but we have a piece of it. We'll play it now and then come back and talk more about it.
When will our voices be effective, legitimate, equal leaders in a big tent party? My friends, this is the 21st century question for the Democratic Party, and it is time for the Democratic Party to call the question. So as I walk away from this podium and I look at a Maryland that is a majority-minority state, we are, that it is time for us to have our seat at the table. As women, as workers, as black and brown people, as communities of color, we are no longer content to have you make the decisions for us, to have you set the table for us. It is time for us to get off the menu and to get around the table.
Senator Raskin, just some of what Congresswoman Donna Edwards had to say last night, a very good excerpt from a much longer set of remarks. Your thoughts upon hearing this?
So, well, obviously, you know, there's a very powerful point that's embedded in that is a serious and meaningful challenge to not just the Democratic Party, but the whole American political system. And I'm psyched that I have worked with Congresswoman Edwards with the nation's leading electoral reform group called Fair Vote, which tries to introduce structural changes to the election process so that we don't get these kind of heated and polarized fights about identity politics in single-member districts. You know, for one U.S. senator or one U.S. rep or governor or something like that. I mean, obviously, in the 21st century, the Democratic Party is the party of all the people and is going to draw on everybody, which is why we elected the first African-American president, Barack Obama. We may be on the verge of electing the first woman president in Hillary Clinton. I'm very proud that I ran with the support of the African-American Democratic Club, the Latino Democratic Club, and the Asian Pacific American Democratic Club here in Montgomery County, despite the fact that, I am neither African American nor Asian American nor Latino American, but I think that, what voters want are people who are going to be passionately, personally committed to inclusion and change for everybody. But I agree with a lot of what Congresswoman Edwards said, but I hope that we can move towards structural solutions in terms of things like proportional representation and multi-member districts, so these things don't become so heated and so personal. And I know
Jamie, let me jump in, only because we have about a minute left in this segment. I think Valerie Irvin has a hopefully brief question. We'll give you a chance to respond, and then we'll probably have to hit a break.
Hi, Jamie. Congratulations. Great race.
Thank you, Valerie.
Listen, I know your Senate seat will be open, and there has never been an African-American woman who has been elected in Montgomery County in her own right to Annapolis, and I would like to know what you might be willing to do or able to do to promote that seat for a person who looks like me.
So, thank you, Valerie. One of the things I'm very proud of is when I first got elected to office in District 20, we had an all-white delegation, but today we have, I think, the most diverse and effective and progressive delegation in Annapolis. So we've got Delegate Will Smith, whom you know, of course, is African-American, a very talented, gifted young man. David Moon, who's Asian-American, very talented and gifted, and, of course, my colleague Sheila Hickson. So we've got no shortage of, magnificent young people who've been involved in our politics. And, I think that's all part of the natural evolution of our politics that we're going to continue to diversify. But obviously, I'm in no position to anoint anybody to be my successor at this point. But, Val, you know that I'm totally on the side of diversity and inclusion and social justice. The very values that you've been known for in your political career, too.
Jamie Raskin, constitutional law professor at American University, state senator from the Silver Spring area, and now he's not congressman-elect just yet, but the odds favor him winning in November by virtue of the fact that he's the Democratic nominee, thanks to his showing last night. Congratulations again to you, Senator Raskin. Rest your voice, and I expect we'll be talking with you sooner than later. Thanks very much for calling in today.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Panel, stand by for just a moment, if you would, please. We'll take a quick break. Back, though, with much more News Talk right after this.